Welcome back to the Raven Files. Tonight we return one last time to the cursed room 801, where every name carries a secret, every judgment demands a sacrifice, and every door opens only when someone is willing to pay the price. Lin Yan has survived the ghost chat, the blood moon trials, and the voices of the dead. But now the final trial has begun. The fifth name has appeared, and this time the name on the screen is hers. Before we begin, remember this story is a work of fiction created for mystery and horror entertainment. All characters, names, and events are fictional. Now turn off the lights, listen closely, and enter the final chapter of the ghost chat of Room 801, The Blood Moon Trials. Part 5, The Fifth Name. Lin Yan did not move. For several seconds, the only sound inside room 801 was the slow dripping of water from the ceiling falling onto the cracked floor, like a broken clock counting down to something that should never arrive. The red candles on the ritual altar burned without wind, their flames stretching upward into thin, trembling lines. Around the room, the red threads tied to the walls, the ceiling, the old phones, and the ancient notebook pulsed like veins beneath dead skin. Behind Lin Yan, the judge remained close. It was too tall for the room, too large for any human shape, and yet it stood there, as if the ceiling, the walls, and the rules of the world had all decided to bend around it. Its body was made of layered darkness, not smoke, not shadow, but something older and heavier than both. Where its face should have been, a curtain of blackness hung down, and beneath that curtain stretched a patient, terrible smile. Lin Yan's shoulder was still cold where its long hand had touched her. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run toward the door and throw herself into the hallway, even if the hallway had already become something impossible. But her legs would not obey her. Fear had not frozen her like ice. It had buried her alive inside her own body. On the altar, her cracked phone glowed brighter. The screen was split from top to bottom by a long fracture, but the words were still clear. The ghost chat had opened by itself. The messages did not appear one by one anymore. They were already there waiting for her as if they'd been written long before she ever entered room 801. Final trial unlocked. The fifth name has entered room 801. Below the words, 5 names appeared in a list. Chen Ruo, Wang Xue, Han, the judge, Lin Yan. Lin Yan stared at the last name until her vision blurred. Her name looked wrong on that screen. It looked like a mistake, like someone had stolen it from her life and placed it among the dead. But deep inside her chest, in the place where fear became truth, she knew it was not a mistake. She had not been invited into the ghost chat. She had been chosen. Lin Yan did not understand why at first. She was not one of Chen Ruo's classmates. She had never met Wang Xue before the ghost chat. She had not known Han while he was alive, and she had never stepped inside room 801 until the night the messages began. Compared to the others, she seemed like an outsider, someone pulled into a tragedy that did not belong to her. But the curse had never needed someone directly involved. It needed someone who could be tempted. Lin Yan remembered the first time she read about room 801 online. It had been past midnight, and the story had appeared between other strange posts, half rumor and half warning. She remembered scrolling through the comments, reading strangers argue about the missing students, the sealed floor, the ghost chat, and the names that appeared before someone died. At that time, she had not felt grief. She had felt curiosity. Worse than that, she had felt distance. The cold comfort of someone standing outside another person's tragedy and believing she was safe because she was not part of it. She even thought for one careless second that there must have been a reason. Maybe the people involved had done something. Maybe the victims had made a mistake. Maybe the story was frightening because someone inside it deserved to be punished. The thought had lasted only a moment, but room 801 had heard it. That was what terrified her now. The curse did not only look for murderers, liars, or betrayers. It looked for the tiny place inside ordinary people where judgment began before understanding. It looked for the part of a person that wanted a simple, guilty name so the story would feel safe. And Lin Yan had carried that part too. That was why her name was on the screen. The judge leaned closer. Lin Yan could feel the cold of its smile beside her ear, even though it had no breath, no voice, no living body. When it spoke, the words did not come from its mouth. They seemed to rise from the floor, the walls, the candles, and the cracked phones around her. Tomorrow, the judge whispered, there will be no tomorrow for you. Lin Yan's fingers tightened around the black pen in her hand. The ancient notebook lay open on the altar. Its pages were yellow, brittle, and wet around the edges, yet none of the ink had run. On the left page were the 4 names already written in dark red strokes. Chen Ruo, Wang Xue, Ye Han, the judge. On the right page, a blank space waited. Lin Yan understood. The 5th name was not simply a person. The 5th name was a decision. Across the room, Chen Ruo stood near the broken mirror, pale and trembling, the crescent moon hair clip still shining weakly in her dark hair. Wang Xue stood beside the wall marked with old water stains, her soaked white school uniform dripping onto the floor, though there was no real rain above her. Ye Han stood near the doorway, elegant and ghostly. In his long, dark coat, his face calm, but his eyes filled with a guilt he could no longer hide. All 3 of them were looking at Lin Yan, not with hunger, not with threat, with hope. The red threads around their wrists and throats glowed brighter. Every thread led back to the altar, twisting through the air like the strings of a cruel puppet stage. Lin Yan had once thought those threads connected the dead to the curse. Now she realized they connected the dead to judgment. Someone had judged Chen Ruo. Someone had judged Wang Xue. Someone had judged Ye Han. And now the judge wanted Lin Yan to continue the chain. Lin Yan forced herself to breathe. "What do you want from me?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. The judge's smile widened. "Write it said." The black pen grew heavier in her hand. Lin Yan looked down at the notebook. The blank space on the right page seemed to pull at her eyes. At first there was nothing there. Then the paper darkened by itself and faint words rose beneath the surface like bones under thin skin. "Write the guilty name. Choose the one who deserves to remain. Complete the trial." Lin Yan shook her head slowly. "No," she whispered. The room responded. The candles flared. The red threads snapped tight. The old phones on the altar lit up one after another, their cracked screens filling with ghost chat messages. Some were old, some were new. Some appeared in voices she recognized and some in voices that should never have existed. She must choose. The 5th name must judge. No trial ends without a verdict. Wang Xue cried out as the red thread around her throat tightened. Chen Ruo grabbed at the thread wrapped around her wrist, her fingers passing through it like smoke, but still feeling its pain. Ye Han stepped forward, but another thread pulled him back, cutting across his chest with a red glow. Lin Yan turned toward them in horror. "Stop!" she shouted. "Let them go." The judge did not move. The room does not release what has not been judged. Lin Yan faced it, her fear turning sharp. They were already judged. "That's why they're here." "No," the judge said. "They were condemned." The word fell heavily into the room. Lin Yan looked at Chen Ruo, then at Wang Xue, then at Ye Han. Something inside her shifted. All this time she had been trying to solve the curse, like a mystery, trying to find the truth behind each name, trying to understand who was victim and who was liar. But perhaps Room 801 had never cared about truth. It only cared about blame. The phone vibrated again. A new message appeared. "Final trial rules, one name must be written. The written name becomes the judge's offering. The fifth name survives only by condemning another. Refusal is not permitted." Lin Yan stared at the final line. Refusal is not permitted. Her hands trembled so hard that the pen scratched against the page, leaving a thin black mark. At once the room grew silent. The judge tilted its hidden face downward, watching. The old phones dimmed. Even the dripping water stopped. The notebook was waiting for her hand to move. Lin Yan's mind flashed back to the first night she entered the ghost chat. The strange invitation, the names, the warnings, the messages from people who should have been dead. She remembered Chen Ruo's frightened eyes in the reflection, Wang Xue's voice calling from beneath the water, Ye Han's calm lies and painful truths. She remembered every trial. Chen Ruo had been the first name. A girl who loved someone she should not have trusted. A girl who heard rumors until the rumors became a cage. A girl who disappeared behind a locked door while everyone whispered that she deserved what happened, because she had been too proud, too strange, too difficult, too easy to hate. Wang Xue had been the second name. A girl soaked in school rain and silence. A girl pushed toward the edge, not by one hand but by 100 small cruelties that everyone pretended were harmless. They had laughed at her messages. They had shared her secrets. They had watched her cry and called it drama. Ye Han had been the third name. A boy who tried to expose the truth and then became part of the lie. He had failed someone. He had hidden things. He had allowed fear to make him silent when silence became another kind of murder. Yet even he had not deserved to become a prisoner of Room 801 forever. And the judge had been the fourth name. Not a victim. Not truly a ghost. The judge was the shape the room gave to every accusation, every cruel whisper, every satisfied sentence spoken by people who wanted someone punished more than they wanted the truth. It was not born from death alone. It was born from judgment without mercy. Lin Yan looked at the fifth name on her phone. Lin Yan. She finally understood why her name had entered the list. Not because she had committed the same crime, not because she was already dead, but because she had been brought here to make the final choice every other person before her had failed to make. Would she save herself by condemning someone else? Or would she break the trial by refusing the rule? The judge's long hand rose again. Its fingers were thin and pale against the darkness of its body, each one too long, each joint bending in a way that hurt to look at. It pointed toward Chen Ruo first. The red thread around Chen Ruo's wrist burned brighter, and she gasped as the mirror behind her filled with old scenes. A younger Chen Ruo appeared in the mirror, standing in a school hallway with her books pressed to her chest. Other students passed by whispering. Their mouths moved without sound at first, then the words became clear. She thinks she's better than us. She deserved to be alone. Maybe if she wasn't so strange, people would care. Chen Ruo lowered her head in the memory, pretending not to hear. The judge spoke softly. Right, Chen Ruo. She was proud. She hid the truth. She let hatred grow around her. Chen Ruo's eyes filled with tears. Lin Yan, don't listen to it. The judge's finger moved. Now it pointed to Wang Xue. Water burst from the cracks in the floor. It rose around Wang Xue's ankles, then her knees, though the rest of the room remained dry. Behind her, the wall became a school stairwell slick with rain. A younger Wang Xue stood there, clutching her phone while messages appeared around her like insects. No one likes you. Stop pretending. Delete yourself from our group. It would be better if you disappeared. Wang Xue's ghostly face twisted with pain. The judge said, Right, Wang Xue. She carried resentment. She called others into the room. She wanted them to suffer as she suffered. Wang Xue shook her head desperately. I was angry. I was lost. But I didn't know what the room would do. The judge's finger moved again. Ye Han. The red threads around him lifted, spreading behind his back like broken wings. The doorway changed into a dim campus office. Papers scattered across a desk. A recording device lay hidden beneath a book. A younger Yehan stood in the shadows listening as someone begged him to help. Then the memory shifted. He was walking away. He heard footsteps behind him. A door closed. Someone screamed. He stopped, turned halfway, and then kept walking. Yehan closed his eyes. The judge whispered, Right, Yehan. He knew more than he said. He abandoned the truth. He chose safety while others drowned in darkness. Yehan did not defend himself at first. When he opened his eyes, he looked only at Lin Yan. It's true, he said quietly. I was afraid. I thought if I survived, I could fix it later, but later never came. The judge lowered its hand. Then it pointed to itself. The candles turned black. The room shook. Every mirror, every phone, every piece of glass reflected the judge at once. In one reflection, it wore the face of an old teacher. In another, the face of a student smiling over a cruel message. In another, the face of a parent who refused to believe their child had done anything wrong. In another, it wore Lin Yan's own face. Right, the judge, it said, and believe you have won. Lin Yan froze. The judge's smile curved wider. If you write my name, the room will accept the offering. The dead will be released. The trial will close. You will leave room 801 alive. Chen Ruo looked up sharply. No, it's lying. Wang Xue whispered. It always offers the easiest answer. Yehan's face darkened. If she writes your name, what happens? The judge did not answer. Lin Yan looked at the notebook. The name of the judge was already written on the left page. It had appeared there as the fourth name, but the right page still waited for a final offering. If she wrote the judge again, would that truly end it, or would it only give the curse a new shape? The cracked phone lit up. A private message appeared addressed only to her. Write the judge, become the one who ended the curse. Go home, forget their voices. Lin Yan's throat tightened. Go home. The words were cruel because they touched the one thing she still wanted most. She wanted morning. She wanted the smell of normal rain outside her apartment. She wanted to wake up and find that room 801 was only an old rumor, A bad dream, a story she had read online and forgotten. But behind those words, she saw the trap. If she wrote the judge, she would still be doing what the room demanded. She would still be choosing a name. She would still be feeding the trial. Lin Yan looked at Chen Ruo. What happened to the people before me? Chen Ruo's face changed. Wang Xue lowered her eyes. Ye Han answered. They all chose. The room seemed to lean closer around him. Ye Han stepped forward as far as the red thread allowed. Every person who entered room 801 was shown the dead, the guilty, the secrets. The room always made them believe they could end everything by writing the right name. Some wrote the person they hated. Some wrote the person they feared. Some wrote the ghost they blamed. And then Lin Yan asked. Ye Han swallowed. Then they left. Lin Yan felt a chill crawl up her spine. They survived, yes, Ye Han said. For a while. Chen Ruo continued, her voice shaking. But the room did not end. It followed them. Not at first. First they dreamed of red threads. Then their phones lit up at midnight. Then people around them began disappearing into new trials. Wang Xue looked at the altar. The room doesn't need a building. It needs someone willing to judge. Lin Yan turned slowly toward the judge. You don't want me to escape, she said. You want me to replace you. The judge's smile did not change, but the room darkened. Lin Yan stepped back from the altar. The pen was still in her hand. It felt less like a tool now and more like a knife. She could feel the notebook pulling at it, hungry for the stroke that would complete the sentence. The judge spoke again, and this time its voice was gentle. You have seen their sins. You have seen their lies. You have seen their weakness. Why should they be released? Why should you suffer for refusing to choose? Lin Yan's eyes burned. Because I'm not here to decide who deserves pain. The red threads trembled. The judge tilted its head. Then you deny justice. No, Lin Yan said. I deny you. For the first time, the judge stopped smiling. The room reacted violently. The door slammed shut, though it had already been closed. The ceiling cracked open, revealing not sky but a black emptiness full of hanging red strings. The old phones on the altar rang at once, dozens of broken ringtones blending into a shrieking chorus. The ghost chat flooded with messages too quickly to read. Unacceptable. The fifth name must judge. A trial without judgment is void. Void is death. Lin Yan staggered as the floor tilted beneath her. The altar stretched farther away, then closer, then multiplied into 3 versions of itself. Chen Ruo, Wang Xue, and Ye Han flickered like candle flames. One moment they were standing in room 801. The next they were trapped inside their own memories, each pulled backward by the red threads that had marked them. The judge rose to its full height. The ceiling split around it. Its darkness filled the upper half of the room, spreading like ink in water. Beneath the shadow curtain of its face, countless smiles opened and closed, each one belonging to someone else. Lin Yan heard voices inside them. She deserved it. He should have spoken. She was weak. He was guilty. It was only a joke. Someone has to pay. The voices became louder and louder until they pressed against Lin Yan's skull. She dropped to one knee. The pen nearly fell from her hand. The judge stepped closer. You are tired, it said. You are afraid. You are alive. That is all the reason you need. Lin Yan looked up. Behind the judge, the wall of room 801 changed. It became 1,000 different rooms. Dorm rooms, classrooms, hospital rooms, Apartments, stairwells, chat windows, dark screens. In each one, someone stood alone while unseen voices judged them. Then she saw herself, not in room 801, but in her own apartment before all this began. She was sitting on her bed, scrolling through ghost stories online, reading comments from strangers who mocked the dead accused victims, turned suffering into entertainment. She remembered pausing at one post about room 801 and thinking it was probably fake. Then she remembered another thought. If it was real, someone must have done something to deserve it. The memory struck her harder than fear. Lin Yan lowered her eyes. Maybe that was why the room found her. Not because she was cruel like the others, not because she had killed or betrayed, but because judgment lived in small places too, in careless thoughts, in easy conclusions, in the comfort of believing another person's nightmare must have a simple reason. The judge leaned down. You see, it whispered, you are not different. Lin Yan's hand shook. No, she said softly. I'm not. The judge's smile returned. Lin Yan looked at the notebook. The blank page was still waiting. I'm not different, she repeated. That's why I can't become you. She stood. The red thread shot toward her. One wrapped around her wrist, another around her throat, another around the pen. Pain flashed through her body, sharp and cold. The room tried to bend her arm toward the page, forcing the pen tip down. Chen Ruo screamed her name. Wang Xue reached out, water splashing around her. Ye Han threw himself forward, letting the red threads cut through his ghostly body as he tried to reach Lin Yan. But none of them could stop it. The pen touched the paper. Ink spread. Lin Yan's hand moved by force. The first letter began to form. C. Chen Ruo's eyes widened in horror. Lin Yan gritted her teeth and fought against the thread. The pen dragged across the page, tearing the paper slightly. The room pushed harder. Her bones felt as if they might crack under the pressure. The letter C twisted. Lin Yan forced her hands sideways. The ink became a dark scar across the page. The judge's voice filled the room. Write the name. Lin Yan screamed not from fear now, but from the effort of refusing. The pen moved again. This time the first stroke became a T. The room tried to guide it into the judge. Lin Yan saw the trap opening beneath her. If she let even that name form, she would lose. She did not need to choose the right guilty person. She needed to reject the trial itself. Her eyes fell on the phone. The list of 5 names glowed. Chen Ruo, Wang Xue, Ye Han, the judge, Lin Yan. Lin Yan suddenly understood what the 5th name truly meant. It was not asking who she would condemn. It was asking who she would become. She tightened her grip on the pen until her fingers hurt. Then she stopped fighting the force pulling her hand downward. The judge paused. Lin Yan let the pen touch the page again, but this time she moved with the pressure instead of against it. She did not try to write Chen Ruo or Wang Xue or Ye Han or the judge. She used the force of the curse to make a sentence the room had never allowed before. The pen scratched across the ancient paper. The 5th name. The room shook. The judge lunged. The red threads tightened around Lin Yan's throat, cutting off her breath. Her vision darkened at the edges. The words on the page blurred, but she kept writing. The 5th name refuses. The candles exploded into red sparks. Every old phone on the altar cracked wider. The mirrors shattered inward. The ceiling screamed with the sound of tearing cloth. Chen Ruo, Wang Xue, and Ye Han were pulled off their feet by the threads, their bodies flickering violently. The judge reached for Lin Yan's hand. Its fingers closed around her wrist. Cold flooded her body. In that cold, Lin Yan saw the truth of the judge. It was not one being. It was a chain. Every person who had chosen a name had left a piece of themselves inside it. Their fear, their anger, their need to survive their relief at not being the one condemned. The judge wore all of them like layers of darkness. Each smile beneath its face belonged to someone who had once thought just this once. Just this name. Just so I can leave. The judge was not ancient because it was born long ago. It was ancient because people had always been willing to condemn. Lin Yan's fingers began to go numb. The pen nearly slipped. Ye Han suddenly appeared beside her. The red threads had torn through him, leaving glowing wounds across his chest and arms, but he forced himself forward anyway. He placed his hand over Lin Yan's, though his ghostly fingers could barely touch hers. "You don't have to carry it alone," he said. Chen Ruo appeared on her other side, crying but determined. She wrapped both hands around Lin Yan's wrist, and for the first time her ghostly touch felt warm. Wang Xue stepped behind them, water streaming from her hair and sleeves. She placed her hand over theirs, and the red thread around her throat loosened as if something inside her had finally stopped drowning. The three dead stood with the living. Together they pushed the pen forward. The judge roared, not like an animal, not like a human. It roared like 1,000 doors slamming shut at once. The walls bent inward. The floor split open beneath the altar, revealing a pit filled with red threads and broken names. Lin Yan used the last of her strength. The fifth name refuses to judge. The moment the final word touched the page, everything stopped. No dripping water, no ringing phones, no whispering voices. Even the judge froze with its hand still reaching for her. The sentence on the notebook glowed not red but white. The light spread from the ink into the page, then into the altar, then into every red thread connected to the room. One by one, the threads turned pale. The red faded from them like blood washed clean by rain. Then the first thread snapped. It was small. A single sound, but it echoed through room 801 like thunder. Chen Ruo gasped as the thread around her wrist broke apart into glowing dust. She looked down at her hands, as if seeing them for the first time. The crescent moon hair clip in her hair shone softly, no longer cold, no longer trapped in the curse's red light. Another thread snapped. Wang Xue clutched her throat as the red cord dissolved. The water around her feet lowered. Her soaked uniform remained, but her face changed. The terrible weight in her expression lifted slightly, like someone who had been underwater for years and had finally reached the surface. More threads broke. Ye Han staggered as the cord around his chest shattered. The wounds made by the threads faded from his ghostly body. He looked toward Lin Yan, and for the first time since she met him, he looked young. Not mysterious, not dangerous. Just a boy who had been afraid for too long. The room began to collapse. Not physically at first. Its memories collapsed. The walls flickered between every version of room 801 that had ever existed. A dormitory room, an abandoned apartment, a hospital storage room, a school office, a chat window on a dead phone. The curse had hidden inside all of them, wearing different names, waiting for another person to choose blame. Now those versions burned away in white light. The judge stepped back. Its darkness peeled from its body in long strips. Beneath the shadow, Lin Yan saw faces. Dozens. Hundreds. Some were crying, some were angry, some looked ashamed. The judge tried to hold itself together, but each broken thread tore another layer away. "You cannot end judgment," it said. Its voice was no longer calm. Lin Yan stood in front of the altar, breathing hard, the pen still in her hand. "No," she said, "but I can refuse to become yours." Lin Yan understood something important as the words left her mouth. Refusing to judge did not mean pretending no one was guilty. It did not mean Chen Ruo had never been betrayed, or Wang Xue had never been hurt, or Ye Han had never failed someone who needed him. It did not mean every cruel message, every lie, every silence, and every hidden recording could be washed clean by one brave sentence in an old notebook. She had no right to forgive on behalf of the dead. She had no right to erase the grief of the families who had waited for answers. And she had no right to turn away from the truth just because the word mercy sounded softer than punishment. But the judge was not asking for truth. It was asking for a sacrifice. That was the difference Lin Yan finally saw. Justice brought hidden things into the light. The judge dragged names into darkness. Justice asked what happened, who was harmed, who lied, who helped, and who looked away. The judge asked only one thing: who should suffer next. Lin Yan could not forgive everyone. She could not save everyone. She could not undo the dead. But she could refuse to become the hand that pushed another name into the room. That was enough. The judge's smile split. For the first time it looked less like a god and more like something starving. "You think mercy frees them," it hissed. "Mercy does not erase what they did." Lin Yan looked at Ye Han. His eyes lowered. She looked at Chen Ruo. Her tears fell silently. She looked at Wang Xue. Her hands were clasped tightly against her chest. "No," Lin Yan said. "It doesn't erase anything. But punishment without truth is not justice. Pain passed from one person to another is not justice. A room that feeds on names is not justice." The judge trembled. The white light from the notebook spread farther. The sentence Lin Yan had written rose from the page and appeared across every phone screen in the room. "The fifth name refuses to judge." Then the ghost chat changed. For the first time, the messages were not written by the room. They came from the dead. Chen Ruo's phone cracked and dark on the altar lit up. "Chen Ruo, I was here." Wang Xue's old phone lit beside it. "Wang Xue, I was hurt." Ye Han's phone flickered. "Ye Han, I was afraid." Lin Yan's phone glowed in the center. "Lin Yan, I will not continue this." The judge recoiled. The room screamed again, but the sound was weaker now. Its power had always depended on silence, on secrets hidden behind accusations, on people too frightened to speak the full truth. Now each name was no longer an offering. Each name was a witness. The ancient notebook turned its pages by itself. Lin Yan saw page after page filled with names she did not know. Some were written in red. Some were scratched out. Some were repeated again and again as if the room had fed on them for years. Beside many names were short verdicts. Liar. Coward. Traitor. Weak. Guilty. Deserved. The words began to fade. Underneath them other words appeared. A daughter, a student, a friend, a witness, a child, a person. Lin Yan covered her mouth with one hand as she understood. The curse had never recorded truth. It had recorded the cruelest version of every person. The notebook shuddered. Its pages tore free and flew into the air, spinning through the room like pale birds. Each page burst into dust before it touched the floor. The altar cracked down the middle. The red candles melted into clear wax that ran across the surface like water. The judge staggered backward into the wall. Its enormous body shrank, then stretched, then broke apart. From inside its darkness came voices no longer judging but begging. I only wanted to survive. I thought they deserved it. I was scared. I didn't know it would continue. I didn't want to be the next name. The voices were human. Lin Yan felt tears on her face, though she did not remember when she had started crying. The judge turned its hidden face toward her. Its smile was almost gone now, reduced to a thin, trembling line. You will regret this, it whispered. Without judgment, the guilty walk free. Lin Yan looked at it steadily. No, she said. Without you, the truth can finally be heard. The last red thread snapped. The sound was not thunder this time. It was silence. A deep silence, clean and impossible. The judge's body broke open. Darkness spilled outward, but instead of spreading, it dissolved in the white light from the notebook. The curtain over its face lifted for one brief second. Lin Yan expected to see something monstrous behind it. Instead, she saw nothing. No eyes, no face, no soul. The judge had only ever been the shape of what people gave it. Then it vanished. Before the darkness fully broke apart, Lin Yan saw one final memory inside it. Room 801 had not always been a cursed room. Once it had been an ordinary room with ordinary walls, ordinary dust, and ordinary silence. A student had hidden there during a storm, crying over messages that would not stop coming. Someone had locked the door as a joke. Someone else had recorded the crying from outside. Others had watched the video later and laughed because it was easier than feeling guilty. When the student disappeared, no one wanted the truth. They wanted a reason, so they made one. She was unstable, she was dramatic, she was lying, she wanted attention, she deserved the consequences. The first judgment was not written in blood. It was written in whispers. Then came the second disappearance, and the whispers became rumors. Then the rumors became warnings. Then the warnings became a game. Students dared each other to enter the room to send messages at midnight, to type names into a chat they did not understand. Every time someone entered room 801 and chose a name, the room learned. Every accusation gave it another voice. Every cruel comment gave it another tooth. Every survivor who escaped by condemning someone else gave it another hand. Slowly the room stopped being a place and became a hunger. That hunger needed a face. So it made the judge. Not from evil alone, but from fear, blame, shame, cowardice, and the relief people felt when another name took the punishment instead of theirs. The judge was not born in one night. It was assembled over years, layer by layer, from every verdict spoken before the truth was known. And now, without the red threads, without the offerings, without another name to feed it, those layers were coming apart. Room 801 exhaled. The pressure in the air disappeared so suddenly that Lin Yan nearly fell. Yehan caught her arm, and for once his touch felt almost real. Chen Ruo and Wang Xue stood beside them, staring at the place where the judge had been. For a moment none of them spoke. Then the door of room 801 opened. Not with a scream, not with a slam, just a soft click. Beyond it was the hallway of the old apartment building. The rain outside had stopped. Pale morning light touched the walls, revealing peeling paint dust and ordinary shadows. The blood moon was gone. Lin Yan turned toward the others. "Can you leave?" she asked. Chen Ruo looked toward the open door, then down at her hands. "I don't know," she said. Wang Xue stepped forward slowly. The floor beneath her was no longer wet. Each step seemed to make her less transparent, then more as if the world was deciding whether to hold her or release her. Yahan looked at the altar. The ancient notebook was still there, but its pages were blank now. The sentence Lin Yan had written remained on the final page, glowing faintly. "The fifth name refuses to judge." Chen Ruo approached the altar. She touched the page with trembling fingers. The crescent moon hair clip in her hair loosened and fell into her palm. She stared at it for a long moment, then smiled through her tears. "I thought this was proof that I had been foolish," she said. "That I trusted the wrong person. That I deserved what happened because I wanted to be loved." Lin Yan shook her head. "You didn't deserve it." Chen Ruo closed her fingers around the hair clip. A soft light surrounded her. She looked younger now. Less pale, less broken. The shadows under her eyes faded as if she had slept at last. "Thank you," she whispered. Then Chen Ruo turned toward the door. As she walked through it, the hallway filled with silver light. For 1 second, Lin Yan saw another version of her standing there alive and laughing, the crescent moon clip bright in her hair. Then the light folded around her. Chen Ruo was gone. Wang Xue covered her mouth as she began to cry. Lin Yan stepped toward her, but Wang Xue shook her head gently. "I used to think if everyone felt what I felt, they would understand," Wang Xue said. "I thought pain could explain pain, but it only made the room stronger." Her old phone on the altar lit up one last time. A message appeared. "Wang Xue has left the chat." Wang Xue looked at Lin Yan with a small broken smile. "I'm tired," she said. "I want to go somewhere quiet." The water stains on the wall faded. Wang Xue walked toward the doorway. With each step, drops of water fell from her sleeves and turned into small points of light before touching the floor. At the threshold, she turned back. "Don't let them turn us into a scary story," she said. "Tell it right." Lin Yan nodded. "I will." Wang Xue stepped into the light and disappeared. Her phone went dark. Yahan remained. He stood near the altar, staring at his own phone as if he did not deserve to touch it. Lin Yan watched him quietly. Of the three, he had always been the hardest to understand. He had lied. He had helped. He had hidden the truth. He had suffered, but he had also failed someone when it mattered most. Yahan looked at Lin Yan. "You should hate me," he said. Lin Yan did not answer immediately. "I did," she admitted. He smiled faintly. "That's fair. I don't know what you deserve," Lin Yan said. "And I don't think I'm supposed to know." Yahan looked down. For a moment the elegance vanished from him completely. He was just a young man standing in the ruins of his worst mistake. "There was a night," he said, "before room 801 took me. I almost told the truth. I stood outside the police station for 20 minutes. I had the recording in my pocket. Then I thought about my family, my future, everything I would lose. So I walked away." His voice broke. The next day, someone else disappeared. Lin Yan felt the weight of his confession settle between them. Yehan took his phone from the altar. The screen flickered weakly, showing old messages, old warnings, old things he had never sent. "I don't want to be forgiven because I suffered," he said. "Suffering doesn't make me innocent." "No," Lin Yan said softly. "It doesn't," he nodded. "But maybe the truth can still matter." He placed the phone on the open notebook. A final message appeared. "Yehan, I was a witness. I failed. This is my testimony." The phone cracked apart. From inside it, a small black memory card fell onto the altar. Lin Yan stared at it. Yehan's eyes widened slightly, as if he had not expected it to survive. "What is that?" Lin Yan asked. "The recording," he whispered. "The real one. I thought the room destroyed it." Lin Yan picked it up carefully. The memory card was cold. Yehan looked at her with desperate hope. "If you take it out of here, maybe their families can finally know. Maybe the people who used the room, the ones who fed it, the ones who hid behind it. Maybe they can be exposed without becoming another offering." Lin Yan closed her fist around the memory card. "I'll take it." Yehan's expression changed. Relief and pain crossed his face at the same time. His phone screen lit up. "Yehan has left the chat." The red thread around his neck, the last one still visible, dissolved into white dust. Yehan stepped toward the door. At the threshold, he paused and looked back at Lin Yan. "You were right," he said. "About what?" He smiled sadly. "The curse didn't end because someone was punished. It ended because someone refused to let punishment be the only ending." Then he walked into the morning light and disappeared. Lin Yan was alone. Room 801 looked smaller now, without the red threads, without the ghosts, without the judge towering behind her. It was only an abandoned room. The walls were cracked. The floor was stained. The altar was an old table covered with melted candles, dead phones, and a blank notebook. But the silence still felt full. Lin Yan stood there for a long time, listening to her own breathing. Then her phone vibrated. She almost dropped it. The cracked screen lit up once more. For a terrible second, she thought the ghost chat had returned. Her thumb hovered over the screen, cold fear rushing back into her chest. But there was only one message. System final trial closed. Blood Moon trials terminated. All names released. Then another line appeared beneath it. Except one. Lin Yan's heart stopped. The room darkened slightly. She stared at the screen until the words changed. Lin Yan active. Her hands went numb. "No," she whispered. A new message appeared. The fifth name did not judge. The fifth name did not offer. The fifth name did not die. Status unresolved. Lin Yan backed away from the altar. The notebook's final page glowed again. The fifth name refuses to judge. The sentence had broken the trial, but her name remained. Not condemned, not released, not dead. Something else. Something the system did not know how to classify. The phone screen flickered. A final private message appeared. "You are not the judge. You are the witness." Lin Yan read it again and again. The witness. Outside room 801, morning light brightened the hallway. Somewhere far below, a door opened and closed. A real sound. A human sound. The world had continued while she had been trapped inside a nightmare. Lin Yan took the memory card, the cracked phone, and the ancient notebook. The moment she lifted the notebook from the altar, the room gave a low groan. The walls shivered. Dust fell from the ceiling. The door remained open, but the light beyond it began to flicker. She understood. Room 801 was dying, and it did not want to die alone. Lin Yan ran. The hallway stretched longer than it should have, but not endlessly this time. Doors flashed past her. 803, 802, 801 again, 800, 799. The numbers rearranged themselves in panic, trying to confuse her, but the red threads were gone. The building had lost its map of fear. Behind her, room 801 collapsed inward. The sound was not like walls breaking. It was like thousands of messages being deleted at once. Lin Yan clutched the notebook against her chest and kept running. At the stairwell, she nearly slipped. Her legs were weak. Her throat hurt where the red thread had tightened around it. Every breath scraped, but she did not stop. The lower floors passed in a blur. 7th floor, 6th floor, 5th floor. At the 4th floor landing, she saw a figure standing by the window. For one frozen moment, she thought the judge had returned. Then the figure turned. It was a woman in a faded grey coat old enough to be Lin Yan's mother. Her face was tired and tearful. Behind her stood a man with trembling hands. Then another person appeared. Then another. Families. Dozens of them. They stood along the stairwell, not fully alive, not fully dead, watching Lin Yan pass. Some held photographs. Some held school bags. Some held old phones. Lin Yan understood without being told. They were the ones who had waited. The ones left behind by the names. As Lin Yan ran past, the woman in the grey coat whispered, "Did you see her?" Lin Yan stopped. Her chest heaved. The woman's eyes filled with tears. "My daughter, Chen Ruo. Did you see her?" Lin Yan swallowed hard. "Yes," she said. "She left." The woman covered her mouth and began to sob. A man near the stairs whispered. Wang Xue. Lin Yan nodded. "She left too." Another voice, older and broken, asked. Yehan. Lin Yan looked down at the memory card in her hand. "He left something behind," she said. The truth. The stairwell filled with soft crying. Not all of it was sorrow. Some of it was relief. The figures faded as morning light entered through the dirty windows. One by one they disappeared. Not violently, not suddenly. They simply became lighter, as if the world had finally stopped forcing them to wait in the dark. Lin Yan continued down. When she reached the 1st floor, the lobby of the building was almost normal. The old security desk was empty. Dust covered the floor. The broken elevator doors stood open like a mouth with no teeth. Outside, grey morning rain dripped from the edge of the entrance canopy. Lin Yan stepped out of the building. The air hit her face. Cold. Real. Alive. She turned back. The apartment building stood behind her, but something was different. The 8th floor windows were dark. The window of room 801, which had glowed red every night, was now cracked and empty. As Lin Yan watched, a thin line appeared down the center of the glass. Then the window shattered. No sound came from it. The pieces fell inward, not outward, disappearing into darkness. A moment later, the entire 8th floor went black. Lin Yan stood on the sidewalk until her legs gave out. She sat beneath the pale morning sky, clutching the notebook and the memory card, while ordinary people began to appear at the far end of the street. A delivery driver rode past without looking at her. An old man opened a shop gate. Somewhere someone laughed at a message on their phone. The world had not changed. But Lin Yan had. 2 days later, the police reopened 3 cold cases. At first, nobody believed Lin Yan. That did not surprise her. She sat in a narrow interview room with a bandage around her wrist and bruises on her throat, telling a version of the story that sounded possible enough to be heard. She did not talk about the judge. She did not talk about red threads or ghost chats or a room that fed on names. She gave them the memory card. She gave them the notebook. She gave them dates, names, locations, and the hidden connections Ye Han had left behind. The recording was damaged but not destroyed. Specialists recovered enough audio to identify voices. Old school records were pulled. Deleted messages were restored. People who'd once laughed, lied, or stayed silent were called in for questioning. The truth did not arrive like lightning. It arrived slowly, painfully, in fragments, but it arrived. Chen Ruo's disappearance was no longer dismissed as a runaway case. Wang Xue's death was no longer described as a lonely tragedy without cause. Ye Han's role was not erased, but neither was the evidence he had tried and failed to protect. Lin Yan watched the news from her apartment 3 weeks later. The reporter stood outside the old building holding a microphone beneath a cloudy afternoon sky. Behind her, police tape surrounded the entrance. Officials had declared the structure unsafe after unexplained damage was found throughout the 8th floor. The screen showed room 801 for one brief second. Empty, burned, ordinary. Lin Yan turned the television off. Her cracked phone lay on the table beside her. It had not lit up since that morning. Still, she had not thrown it away. She told herself it was evidence. She told herself it was a reminder. But the truth was simpler and harder. Part of her was afraid that if she stopped watching it, it would wake up again. That night, Lin Yan dreamed of the hallway. Not room 801, just the hallway. She stood barefoot on the 8th floor, but the walls were clean. No red threads. No dripping water, no shadows moving at the end. The doors were closed and pale sunlight came through the window. At the far end of the hallway stood Chen Ruo, Wang Xue, and Ye Han. They did not look trapped anymore. Chen Ruo wore a clean white blouse, her crescent moon hair clip shining in her hair. Wang Xue's uniform was dry and her face was peaceful. Ye Han wore his dark coat, but it no longer seemed like a ghost's shadow. It looked only like something he had once chosen to wear when he was alive. Chen Ruo smiled. Wang Xue lifted one hand in farewell. Ye Han nodded. Lin Yan tried to walk toward them, but the hallway lengthened gently, not to keep her away, but to remind her that some distances were not meant to be crossed by the living. Chen Ruo spoke first. Tell it right. Wang Xue added, not as a curse. Ye Han finished. As a warning. Lin Yan woke with tears on her face. The apartment was dark. Her phone was silent. For a while that was enough. 1 month later, the old building was sealed. Workers came with metal gates and warning signs. The entrance was locked. The windows were boarded. The 8th floor was scheduled for demolition, but the paperwork slowed after several workers refused to go upstairs. Lin Yan visited once before they closed it completely. She stood across the street beneath a black umbrella, watching the building in the rain. She did not cross the road. She did not need to. Room 801 was no longer calling her. In her bag, the ancient notebook rested inside a sealed evidence envelope. The police had returned it after finding nothing useful beyond blank pages and water damage. To them it was an old notebook. To Lin Yan it was proof that some truths could not survive inside official reports. She opened her bag and looked at it. The final sentence was still there. The fifth name refuses to judge. Lin Yan touched the edge of the page. The ink did not glow anymore. For the first time she smiled. Then her phone vibrated. Lin Yan froze. Rain hit the umbrella above her head. The street noise faded. Slowly she took out the cracked phone. The screen remained black. No ghost chat, no message, no red light. She let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. Then she realized the vibration had come from another phone nearby. Across the street near the sealed entrance of the building, a teenage boy stood under the awning staring down at his own phone. He wore a school uniform and a backpack. His face was pale with curiosity, not fear. Beside him, two friends laughed nervously. One of them said, "Come on, it's just an urban legend." The boy looked at the boarded entrance, then back at his phone. Lin Yan's blood ran cold. She crossed the street before she could think. "Don't," she said. The three teenagers turned toward her. The boy frowned. "Excuse me. Whatever message you received." Lin Yan said, trying to keep her voice steady, "Delete it." The girl beside him laughed awkwardly. "Do you work here?" Lin Yan looked at the boy's screen. For a second she saw only a normal chat app. Then the screen flickered. Not red, not fully, just a faint pulse beneath the glass like an ember buried under ash. The boy pulled the phone back. "It's nothing. Someone sent a link." "What link?" Lin Yan asked. He hesitated. Then he showed her. The message was simple. "Do you want to know what really happened in room 801? Click to enter the archive." Lin Yan felt the world tilt. Not the ghost chat. Not exactly. An archive. A new form. A new doorway. She reached for the phone, but the boy stepped back. "Hey, don't touch my phone." Lin Yan looked him in the eye. "I know you don't know me," she said. "I know this sounds crazy, but some doors don't look like doors anymore. Sometimes they look like rooms. Sometimes they look like group chats. Sometimes they look like links people send when they think fear is entertainment." The teenagers stopped smiling. The boy looked down at the message again. The screen flickered. For one brief moment, Lin Yan saw the reflection of a wide, patient smile behind his shoulder. She turned sharply. No one was there. Her heart pounded. The boy whispered, "What happens if I click it?" Lin Yan looked at the sealed building. The 8th floor windows were dark, but one boarded window had a thin crack through it. Behind the crack for less than a second, something red glowed. Lin Yan reached into her bag and pulled out the ancient notebook. The teenagers stared. She opened it to the final page and showed them the sentence. "The fifth name refuses to judge." "I clicked once," Lin Yan said. "I almost didn't come back." The boy's face changed. Curiosity became fear. He deleted the message. The moment it vanished, the faint red glow behind the boarded window went out. The rain grew louder again. The city returned. The teenagers backed away from the building. None of them spoke. Then the girl whispered an apology, though she did not seem to know what she was apologizing for, and they hurried down the street together. Lin Yan stood alone beneath the awning. Her hands were shaking. She looked at the notebook. For a moment the ink on the final sentence glowed faintly. Not red. White. Then a new line appeared beneath it. "The witness remains." Lin Yan stared at the words until they faded. She understood then that the Blood Moon trials were over. Room 801 was finished. Chen Ruo, Wang Xue, and Ye Han were free. The judge as it had existed was gone. But the thing that created the judge had not disappeared from the world. It lived wherever people turned pain into entertainment, wherever strangers became names on a screen, wherever blame became easier than truth, wherever someone stood at the edge of another person's suffering and asked, what did they do to deserve it? Lin Yan closed the notebook. She did not feel chosen anymore. She felt responsible. That was worse, and maybe better. 6 months later, Lin Yan began writing the story. She did not use the real names at first. She changed details. She disguised locations. She wrote late at night with the lights on, stopping whenever her phone made any sound. Sometimes she deleted entire pages because they felt too much like the room's version of the truth. But she kept returning to one promise. Tell it right. So she wrote Chen Ruo not as a rumor, but as a girl who had wanted to be seen. She wrote Wang Xue not as a ghost in wet clothes, but as a girl who had been hurt until anger became the only language left to her. She wrote Ye Han not as a charming mystery, but as a warning about cowardice, silence and the terrible cost of waiting too long to do the right thing. And she wrote the judge not as a monster that appeared from nowhere, but as something people helped create whenever they forgot that a name belonged to a person. The final chapter took her the longest. She wrote the sentence again and again. The fifth name refuses to judge. At first it sounded too simple. Then she realized that was why it mattered. The room had survived for so long because people believed every story needed a guilty name. One person to hate, one person to blame, one person to throw into darkness so everyone else could leave feeling clean. Lin Yan's ending refused that comfort. When she finished the manuscript, dawn was breaking outside her window. Her cracked phone lay beside her laptop. It had not turned on for months. Lin Yan saved the file. For a moment she considered deleting it. Let the whole nightmare disappear. Let room 801 become another sealed place in the city, another rumor people whispered about until they forgot why it frightened them. Then she remembered the boy outside the building. The link, the archive, the almost door. Lin Yan uploaded the story. Not to make people curious, to make them careful. The title appeared on the screen. The Ghost Chat of Room 801. The Blood Moon Trials. Beneath it she wrote one final warning. If a story asks you to judge the dead, close the page. If a room asks you to write a name, drop the pen. If a screen tells you someone deserved their suffering, remember this. The curse begins the moment you believe it. Lin Yan posted it. Then she closed her laptop and sat in the quiet morning light. Outside the city woke slowly. Motorbikes passed in the street below. Someone opened a window. A child laughed somewhere in the building across from hers. Ordinary life returned in small, fragile sounds. Lin Yan let herself breathe. Her phone screen lit up. She turned toward it slowly. No red glow. No ghost chat. Just her reflection on the cracked black glass. For a second, however, she saw another reflection behind her. Chen Ruo, Wang Xue, Ye Han. They stood in the pale light watching her with quiet smiles. Lin Yan did not turn around. She was afraid that if she moved they would disappear. Chen Ruo's voice came softly. You told it right. Wang Xue whispered. Now let us go, Ye Han said, and live. Lin Yan closed her eyes. When she opened them again, the reflection was gone. The phone remained dark. The room was empty, but the fear that had lived inside her since room 801 felt smaller now. Not gone. Maybe it would never be gone, but smaller, human-sized, something she could carry without letting it become a judge. That night, Lin Yan slept without dreaming. Far away across the city, the sealed apartment building stood under a moonless sky. The 8th floor was dark. Room 801 no longer existed in any official floor plan. The door had been removed. The number plate had fallen. The walls inside had collapsed into a hollow space filled with dust and old wires. But in the building next door, in a small storage room no one used, an old phone lay inside a cardboard box. It had no battery, no SIM card, no owner. At exactly midnight, its screen flickered once. A faint red line appeared across the glass. For a moment the screen remained blank. Then words formed slowly, weakly, as if something very old was trying to remember how to speak. Room 801 closed. Archive damaged. Searching for new host. The screen glitched. Static filled the glass. Then another line appeared. Error. Witness active. The red light faded. The phone went dark again. For a long time nothing happened. Then somewhere deeper than the building, deeper than the city, deeper than any room with a number on its door, something smiled without a face. Not the judge. Not yet. Only the possibility of one. And somewhere else in her apartment, Lin Yan woke suddenly. She sat up in the dark, breathing hard. Her phone was silent. Her room was quiet. There were no red threads, no voices, no messages. Still she reached for the ancient notebook beside her bed. She opened it to the final page. The sentence was still there. The 5th name refuses to judge. Below it in ink so faint she almost missed it, a new sentence had appeared. A judgment refused is not a judgment ended. Lin Yan stared at the words. For a moment fear returned. Then she picked up the black pen. Her hand did not shake this time. Under the new sentence she wrote one line of her own. Then I will refuse again. The white light returned. Soft, steady, alive. And for the first time since she entered room 801, Lin Yan smiled. Not because the darkness was gone forever, but because she finally understood something the judge never could. A curse could ask for a name. A room could demand a verdict. A ghost chat could unlock every trial it wanted. But refusal was also a door, and Lin Yan knew how to open it. The end.